Alright guys, in this video I'm going to show you my exact step-by-step process to write long-form copy that actually converts. And for reference, just one of my clients, I write 8 posts for him between emails and school posts of long-form copy every single week. And that means I'm coming up with unique subject lines. I split test subject lines, so that's like 2 subject lines for every single one of those 8 posts. So 16, and unique hooks, unique CTAs, unique angles, unique stories. And I'm going to show you guys the process so you can just do this really simply, because obviously scaling an agency like that, scaling a copywriting business, you need to have systems. I had to develop systems, otherwise there's no way I would have ever gotten past the 10K mark, which unfortunately is where most copywriters get capped because they simply don't have the systems to write enough copy to actually bring on new clients. It's not a leads issue. It's just the fact that they can't actually even deliver quality results for more people. And if you can't get quality results for yourself or for your clients, it's going to be really freaking hard to scale. So anyways, this is a really simple process. I just drafted like a Google Doc here. And I put everything I know into this document. It's really simple. You can see right here, I've got examples at the bottom, but the actual step-by-step process is pretty simple. And I'm going to walk you through it, and then I'm going to show you how I actually come up with subject lines. I've got to come up with the subject line actually for a post that's going out, or an email that's going out on Tuesday. And so I'll show you guys that live. But anyways, the first thing you got to do is know who you're writing to. This kind of goes without saying, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. But basically, when you're writing any post, whether it's for a client or for your own avatar, you have to really think about what does their day-to-day life look like? What's their age group? What's the, the place in the world that they live? Do they have kids? Do they not? Do they, have a spouse? Do they not? Like those things actually determine a lot as far as the style in which you write. Because when you're writing to someone, you want to make jokes that resonate with them. You want to use like analogies and similes that resonate with them. And so if you're talking about these things that they are just not going to relate to, you make a joke about a song that they've never heard or a show or a trend that's going on social media, and their age group is like not even on social media, they're not going to resonate. And so it's that simple. It's like you just have to know what their day-to-day life looks like so that you can write copy that's going to draw them in, that's going to paint a picture that they actually can envision themselves in. And when you can do that, and I'll get into this a little bit later, you can use stories to sell for you like crazy, and it avoids the need to even have to directly CTA. And so I do that with almost all of my client posts, is I use stories to do CTAs like multiple times a week without burning out their audience, sending to the same email list, with different segments and stuff built in, but sending to roughly the same like amounts of people on almost a daily basis without burning out that list or without, over pitching. So anyway, that's because I know kind of what their life looks like. I know how to relate to them. I know what kind of stories resonate. And that's step number 1. Step 2, you can see right here, come up with the idea. And by idea here, I mean like what is the actual topic? Like big picture. What are you writing about? What are you trying to teach? What kind of value are you trying to add? Are you telling a story? If so, who's it about? That's the big idea. So you want to read what your avatar is saying in order to come up with this idea and what your competitors are writing about. So you guys may already do this. You may go on social media and look at what are your competitors posting, what YouTube videos do they have go viral, what emails did they send out this last week. But to take that like one layer deeper, look at how their audience responded to that. If they post a video and it goes viral, and in the the comments, people are asking the same question or they're giving the same excuse, that's what you should write about, because that's what your avatar is actually thinking. And if you can write what they're thinking and solve the problem that's actually in their head or in front of them, then you're going to have content that's going to go crazy because it's actually delivering value. And whether it gets a bunch of views or not, the people that read that copy are going to convert. All right, so capture quick thoughts as the idea is top of mind. You're going to start by finding the experts in your field. So for me, for example, I might go and look at like other business entrepreneurs that are writing advertising. I might look at Dan Coe. I might look at Hormozy. I might look at, I don't know, like who's another, Russell Brunson, Frank Kern, those kind of people. And then I'm going to read the comments to see what their avatar's questions, problems, and excuses are. And you're going to see a lot of smaller accounts in that comment section. So you can also go and look at what those smaller accounts are posting. If there's someone that's like roughly the same size as you can get a lot of insight into like how they're growing. And then you want to interact and like actually get to know this avatar. And then number 3 is look into the trending titles in your niche, both recently and throughout all time. So there's like always been advertising through different mediums, and it's only recently that we've had this like global advertising where we're able to access people from all over the world in an instant, in the click of a finger. But there has been trends since like newspapers, since books, since like, basic just like communication existed. And so if you look back, you can find really, really cool angles just from like looking at content that was performing even 100 years ago. And so I want you to like keep in mind that you don't just have to look at like what's been performing in the last year. You may, if you're looking to write about a trending topic, obviously it's got to be recent, but if you're looking to actually learn the psychology of your avatar, then you should be looking at trending content throughout like all of time. All right, so find tweets, quotes, data, articles. I would add books to that list that you can pull inspiration from to back up your argument. All right, because it's really good to be able to justify everything you're saying or be able to back it up with some proof, even if you're not going to say that proof, to know it's at least like a real concept. And then traffic secrets. First step is to understand that your customers are already there. They're already on the internet. You're not creating them, you're attracting them. All right, what value do you have that you can provide to this market that is different? So, right, you're going and you're looking at all these trends, you're looking at other people in your niche, but then you want to go and find something different that you can give them, something that's unique, something you can add to what your competitors are doing, give a unique angle. Ideally, I think the fastest way that I've done this, like to come up with an idea in writing a post, is I try and remove something that my competitors have as part of their process that's like an undesirable step. So to illustrate that point, like I used to coach copywriters and a lot of freelancers, and I do a little bit of that now, but not much. And when I was all in with that, I read a lot of the copy from other copywriters that were selling courses. And I would read that just to get insights as far as like what was performing. But one thing I noticed was that all of those copywriters were teaching their students to do cold outreach and teaching them to go basically spam creators, spam business owners, get their emails, just send a bunch of messages on Instagram or email, whatever, and try and pitch through cold outreach. And I had never done that. I'd gotten all my clients scaled to 50K a month without doing a single bit of cold outreach. To this day, I've never done cold outreach. And so my unique angle, it wasn't that I had this, crazy new industry. Like copywriting's been around for like decades, but I had a unique angle because I wasn't actually telling them that they had to go do cold outreach. I told them, you can do this without doing any cold outreach, build a network. It's way higher leverage. You can charge way more. You can get past 10K faster, and you don't ever have to send a cold DM in your life. And so that was my unique angle. So think about when you're writing a copy, what's something you can remove that's an undesirable step? Like you'll see this in fitness all the time. People will say, I have a client of mine actually, and one of her promises is like, you can lose 10 pounds in X time period without crazy diets. So it's really like the unique angle is the without statement. Because a lot of those programs are going to put you on some crazy like Atkins protein diet or keto or whatever. And a lot of people don't want to do that. So that's what stops them with the weight loss training. But if you can figure out how to remove that, then all of a sudden you've got a unique angle. You have an easier process, so it is therefore different. Anyways, okay. What problems are being unsolved by the others in your niche that you can uniquely solve or that you're uniquely qualified to solve? All right, so that's kind of like what I just said. So let's go to the next one. 4, outline the angle. So the angle is how you're actually going to go about presenting the idea in your post. It's kind of like how you're going to open it and how you're going to close it, and sort of like what side of this problem are you going to like be attacking it from. So share something interesting or solve a problem in the post. Know who you're talking to. We talked about that at the beginning. And that's kind of the goals as far as like your end. And then use your avatar's big problems to come up with the angle. Are they lost as far as what step to take first? Do they feel judged for trying to change their life or learn something new? Is there financial consequences to them not taking action? What does their family and friends think of them? Learn the potential objections, because these are also really good hooks. You can use these as subject lines or the first sentence to open up an email if you really are like stuck on what angle to use. So they might have an objection like, oh, it takes a lot of time to lose weight, or it takes a lot of time to make money, or it takes a lot of time to learn copywriting. All right, that could be one. Most solutions like this don't actually help. So they might have doubts because they've been burned by other people in your niche. It's too expensive. That could be one. Like they can't justify the financial commitment. I don't know enough to implement what you're teaching. You might feel like imposter syndrome. They might feel like, oh, I don't know enough to be a professional copywriter. I don't know enough about fitness to create my own custom meal plan, or I don't know enough about business to launch my course, whatever it is, right? They've got to overcome that doubt of like, they're not, prepared enough. They're not an expert, whatever. All right. Now, next step is you're going to outline the body copy. And this, you can outline the body copy before you're completely sold on your hook, or completely sold on your angle even. You can actually go and outline everything and then come back to it and insert that unique angle, kind of fill out the gaps in the story, go and create a hook that's going to get people to read the rest. But this is where you're going to use your personal experience or your client's personal experience to relate to readers. All right. So I had an idea about how to grow, and then you kind of go into the segue of like what your idea was. Another example, I felt like I was putting the work in. I didn't even know how to tell if I was getting close to my goals. Like this is where we're relating to the audience. So you want to choose something that's accurate and then like actually part of your story or your client's story. But I didn't even know what achieving, like let's say, like losing 10 pounds would do for me, or I didn't even know what learning copywriting would do for me, or XYZ. That's actually true for my story. I had no idea that learning copywriting was valuable, which is actually, I think, what helped me sell it. So anyways, it took me too much time to get started. I didn't know if it was worth it. So I'm just kind of like filling this little gap in here. I was stressing about finances and put my last dollars into this. Like, you could talk about these things that you think your avatar is going to relate with, because then they're going to automatically put themselves in your shoes and start envisioning themselves in your story. And what that means is when you turn that story into a hero's journey and you start telling about your big aha moment, your realization, the happiness at the end of the story, the light at the end of the tunnel, all of that stuff, they're still envisioning you or envisioning themselves in your story. And so you've now carried them through to this identity of someone that's going to win. And when you make the CTA at the end, the click-through rate is going to be way higher. They also trust you because they feel like you were in their shoes. So tell the brighter side of the story and how everything worked out after you kind of open up with that angle. And then get tactical with steps, methods, frameworks, or lists. Anytime I'm writing long-form copy, I want it to be actionable, even if it's like a case study, even if it's a CTA with, just like a really short, maybe like YouTube video, whatever it is. I want whatever it is that I'm telling them to do to have like a consequence, to have something that they can actually convert into a result in their own life. So it could be like a list of people who succeeded with this, the mechanism they used, the time it took, the content, guides, and steps that they took. And then you want to have like a big idea. And this is how you can kind of transition into a CTA. But it's like when you do X thing, you can completely avoid this common/unwanted action and hit your goal in less time. So obviously you'd fill these brackets in with like the custom aspects of your niche, but that's kind of how you like share that big idea. And like that's going to be after you share the light at the end of the tunnel part of the story, if you're following that like case study framework. But anyways, now let's get to the CTA. You can actually like outline a CTA before you've even got the angle, right? So what I want you to do is just follow along these steps and then like go back and fill in the gaps where if like you're still stuck on, I don't know what sentence to open with, that's fine. Just like just follow the steps. Go back to the opening sentence once you've written the rest of it. All right, anyways, so use a big benefit statement for the CTA. You will have the exact steps to not just accomplish XYZ result on your own, but you'll also have direct support from me. Now, I put this in like brackets because direct support might look like they can post in your community. It might look like they've got a one-on-one call with someone on your team. It might look like they have DM access to you. I don't know what that looks like, so you'll have to fill that gap in with whatever the actual support is. It may not be direct, but whatever it is. To make sure you get there in X amount of time, it's really good if you can have a really like concrete timeline or less. All right, cool. Rewrite copy using the persuasive outline. All right, so now you've just brain dumped. That's the goal of this. That's why I'm saying just follow along, follow the steps, even if you're still stuck on maybe the subject line or the hook or the CTA or any of these pieces. Go to the next step as soon as you've gotten everything out of your mind of that step. Go to the next one, and then rewrite the copy using this persuasive outline. So be sure to follow a general persuasive writing framework. Whether this is a case study, a value script, or a value post, like whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. You still need to have these core components. First one is attention. So you need to open a curiosity loop with an interesting fact, story, or statement. So like, for example, I did this with a case study recently, and it was a case study about this guy, Ben, who has an Etsy shop. He's made $1 million or something with Etsy. And it just started with Ben had made $1 million on Etsy. And then you're going to contrast that. So step 2, lead. The big problem and agitating that problem, paint a picture of that perspective. So I then led that into, but when Ben switched over to courses, he felt completely lost. He started, he stopped, he was not consistent. He felt like he couldn't teach his avatar how to do what he had done on Etsy, XYZ. So I'm starting to paint the picture and I'm relating to the reader, because a lot of the readers of that post are trying to start a course and they don't feel like they can teach, or they don't feel like they're qualified or whatever. So I'm now relating and I'm leading into this big problem of like imposter syndrome, basically. All right, next one, the body, how to overcome the problem and the benefits, or why associated with those benefits. So I then paint the picture of like what Ben did. I was like, first, like, he slacked on all of his habits. He kind of fell away from school. He got discouraged, XYZ, but then he realized like nothing was changing in his life, and he decided just to take a risk and to start posting some content. He posted some organic content, got some calls booked, and decided he needed to really focus on his offer. So on those calls, he gathered a lot of information about his avatar. He then reworked his offer to make it a no-brainer offer and consistently increased his prices. With each sale, he sold 10K plus in 5 days after implementing that. All right, so then in conclusion, wrap it up and leave with value. So that's where I would kind of summarize like what he did. Like I would say the biggest turning point for Ben wasn't that, he had to go learn a new skill. It was just that he had to have confidence in his ability to teach. And all you've got to do if you want to be consistent with this is go and talk to people, talk to your avatar like Ben did, and gather intel on what they need. And then you can turn that into a course that they want and sell it to them before that course is built. And that's how I would kind of like recap what is the action step here. CTA, tell them what to do next, be clear, concise, and authentic. CTA for this post that I'm writing about Ben, I'll just use that as an example because I think it's great. CTA is like, if you want the same system we use to help Ben get started, launch his sales page so that he could sell before his course was even built, book a call here and we will show you the full roadmap that we've used to get to $3 million in sales. And then you can also remind yourself of like frameworks, like you guys probably heard of PAS, ADA, DIC. If you haven't, they're just copywriting frameworks, and they're kind of like an outline that you can follow to make sure you're covering the main basis of like a persuasive outline. So for example, PAS stands for pain, agitate, solution. So you're going to paint the picture of like what that pain point that the audience is in. So Ben, for example, confusion, uncertainty that he could actually teach people, unsure where to find leads, etc. Agitating that by like, what did his life look like? He started slacking. He didn't see any sales. He was frustrated. He was beating himself up. Solution. He actually just started creating content. He followed our system step by step. He decided to trust it even though it didn't look like it was going to work. XYZ, and it worked. And that's kind of like how I would go about like following that PAS. ADA, DIC, they're similar. Like DIC stands for disrupt, intrigue, and click. So that just means you're going to have a really disruptive hook. You're going to then intrigue them in the body. You're going to create a bunch of curiosity gaps, probably not really fully solve the problem in the story, but instead you'd be like, if you guys want to see how Ben launched his course, got to 10K in the last 5 days, click here and we'll show you. And so that would be like following DIC. It's just like giving them slightly less as far as the actual solution. And then you want to start writing. And you can use like Hemingway, that's a great app, or Mail Meteor is another good one to make sure that your copy is, number one, below a 5th grade reading level, and number two, make sure that it doesn't have spam words that are going to get your email tanked by Google, because that would suck. And it's happened to quite a few people I know. So case study examples. Now I'm going to like just show you guys an example of a really good email. This one's from Sam Ovens, and I have a lot of clients that actually copy this framework, and we send out emails like this about their clients. So here we go. Hey Patrice, meet Victor Jarek. He used to run a one-on-one coaching business helping real estate investors get started flipping properties. All right, we're a little bit interested. I wouldn't say we're that interested yet, but we can tell us a story. This is just a picture. I don't know why it says Michael there, but it's a picture placeholder. Victor was a skilled investor and could teach his coaching clients how to put together their own real estate flips. All right, we're interested now. He's skilled at something, and anyone that's skilled at something that wants to build a course is hooked. What he didn't know was how to take his one-on-one coaching and convert it into a scalable offering that didn't demand more of his time with every client he signed on. Okay, Sam here is now painting the picture of what this pain point looked like. Let's break it down. Who? Victor Jarek. Now, by the way, this is just a format that Sam followed. It was like, it's that concept Hormozi talks about of like, sometimes it's boring to follow the same framework for every post, but what happens is you attract really loyal followers who, they just want to know the who, the problem, the solution. So they love the fact that you just outline it like that. So if you think it's boring, there's actually some really intentional strategy behind it. Okay, problem, inability to scale his one-on-one coaching business due to packed calendar and a business model that rigidly traded time for dollars. Solution, join Up-Level Consulting, my 9-week training program that allows you to scale to 7 figures by selling courses and group coaching. All right, so this like probably would be linked by Sam as like a link to book a call, and that's where he's kind of presenting his offer. Did it work? Yep. Victor just closed his first $20,000 a month in sales. Victor recently shared this big win in the community. There's another picture that would go there. One of the most important areas of business that we helped Victor with was constructing his organic outreach messaging. He had a good pipeline of one-on-one coaching students, but his messaging and organic marketing process was not systematized the way it should have been, and as a result, he didn't have predictable, reliable, consistent results from his organic marketing efforts. You can see, like, Sam's not necessarily optimizing for short sentences. He's optimizing to make sure every sentence has a punch to it. We helped Victor fix this problem of unreliable organic marketing results, and once we did, he was able to flood his calendar with interesting prospects, not just sometimes, but week in and week out like clockwork. So Ted, would you like to learn how to start and grow an online education business like Victor? If you do, click here to see if and how we may be able to help you. Sam. All right, so that's the CTA there. Pretty straightforward. This is another example of one of his emails, and then I'm going to try and find one of the ones, because I know I have a couple in here that I've written myself. This is one of the best performing emails that I wrote for one of my clients, Max Pearson, and so I'll just go through this and kind of break it down as I do. If you just had more time, contact name. All right, we're starting with an objection. This is an excuse that I see across a lot of content, social media, people saying, oh, if I had more time, I would build a course, but they're running another business or they're working a 9-to-5 job, whatever. It's one of the biggest excuses in the entire industry. All right, so I start with that. That's a curiosity gap right away, because we're kind of reaffirming something they're thinking. That's why we all started businesses, right? Well, this 1-minute email might surprise you. All right, curiosity gap again, and I've also done something strategic by saying 1-minute email, because that's a very low commitment. Now they're going to read to the end. My goal in writing this is to share what I did to accidentally create an insane close rate. Basically, your sales come down to your product, right? Question mark. I'm getting them engaged. I'm also very strategically using the kind of language that this creator uses. He says this a lot. So he just says, like, he adds right to the end of his sentences a lot. So whatever you're helping people actually do, they see a YouTube video, book a call, and what happens? Well, a lot of people put an outsourced rep who's known their course for 3 weeks onto Zoom and expect them to close. By the way, onto Zoom is strategic as well, because if you say onto a call is a flag word on Google, which just means it's more likely that you end up in spam. All right. He may have memorized your list of deliverables, but he barely knows what the person on that Zoom screen wants. And when you outsource that role, your sales tank. Also, notice the spacing of this. These sentences are optimized just for easy reading. And then there's some words in all caps. Normally when I send this, I have some of it in bold just to make it even easier to read. All right. Your sales tank. Ready to start closing more sales book strategy session. This is an early CTA. I like to put it in parentheses for the early CTA. Chances are you're the best person to sell your course. When I launched my course, me and my C-suite did all the webinars and sales calls. And to this day, I've never outsourced sales calls. So when leads join their Zoom, and by the way, you can see, I don't know if you can really tell, you cannot tell for sure, but when I write calls, if I do want to say call instead of Zoom, I will do a capital I. And you can't even tell that I did an I next to the L, but I do capital I, so that way it doesn't get flagged. I don't know for sure that works, so don't quote me, but I think it does. All right, because it doesn't show up on Mail Meteor as a flag word. All right, so anyways, so when leads join their Zoom, they create a tailored game plan with the guys who built my $3 million business with me. One of the highest leverage things you can do starting out, create a program high ticket enough that it's worth you getting on the Zoom calls yourself. You getting on the Zoom call with leads yourself. Leads will trust you more and feel more confident you can help them. Want the chance to speak with one of the experts that scaled our business to $250K a month with me? Grab a free strategy session here and let's see if our system would help you scale and bring in better leads. Chat soon. Cheers. Max. And then I always do a PS statement with another reiteration of the CTA. So they'll show you a system to book your own calls so that you build your info business without the stress. And that would be linked as well. All right. So that's kind of a breakdown of like how I write these emails. And then as far as like coming up with the subject line, I try to use numbers as often as possible. So for that email, I might say like the secret behind 3 million in sales, or like, here's why you should not outsource your sales rep until you hit maybe like 1 million a month or something like that. I don't know. I would try and include a number. But that's even more essential when you write an email like this one about Victor. I don't think I have Sam's subject line, but let's see. Well, for this one I do. For the second one, meet Quinn Nolan, 5-figure days selling training, not services. So that's an example. Like I always do something shorter because I optimize for mobile readability, and I'll do something like, how this beginner hit 15K in 15 days, or from 15K to maybe 30K per month without a team or whatever. Like that's how I'll structure these, because people are always going to respond better to numbers because it's just very tangible. It's not you giving them theory, it's an actual story, and they can tell that by the hook, and they're way more likely to click. And then also you just have to deliver on that and actually talk about how they hit that number, otherwise they will not click your CTA. So yeah, hopefully that kind of explains it. And if you guys have questions on how to actually write specific subject lines, I think I have a whole video on that. So you guys can check it out on my channel. But yeah, it's that simple as figure out what are the numbers that you can share, what are the tactical action steps you can give away in the post, and make sure that you correlate your subject line to that first sentence of the email. That's going to be really important in getting people to actually click the end. So there's a couple extra tidbits. But if you're really stuck on the idea around your post, go on to swipe.co or go subscribe to a few newsletters to get some ideas flowing. Look at what other people are talking about. And then also look at the content. Like I said, read the actual comments on your competitors' social medias to get an idea of what your audience is thinking right now. All right, so if you guys want any more help with actually writing these emails, I do done for you emails. I also do some coaching, so you guys can click the link below if you want to book a call. And if not, I will see you guys in the next video. Have a good one.